Hey folks, Brian Smith with Vantas Commercial Real Estate, standing in front of a multifamily complex to speak to you about the pros and cons of owning multifamily. Now, one of the pros with multifamily is that here in the Sioux Falls area, there is a lot of demand for housing. And so when you do have a vacancy, it's somewhat easy to fill. Another, along those same lines, another pro of having a multifamily building is that you aren't working with a single tenant building. So you don't have a very high vacancy rate at any one time unless a massive number of tenants leave all at once. The positive part about that is you can have the majority of your rent coming in on a monthly basis and not have to worry so much about how you're going to make those loan payments or pay the bills because you don't have the building filled up to capacity. In general, multifamily is less expensive to come into. There's a lower barrier of entry for a small multifamily property. You can buy a duplex or a single family residence and divide it up into 2 apartments for as little as $100,000 or $200,000. And so it's a great place for people who want to get started in commercial to dip their toe in the water and get going. It also gives a lot of opportunities for do-it-yourself type owners to go in and put sweat equity into their property and fix it up, improve it, and do the maintenance, the necessary maintenance on the property in the long run as well. So there are a lot of pros that do go along with multifamily as far as the smaller starting off investor, but then there are complexes like the one that we're here looking at that are worth millions upon millions of dollars as well. So multifamily is scalable once you get experience and get good at it. The cons to multifamily is that in general, the leases are shorter. Many times you've only got a 6-month, maybe a year-long lease out of each tenant. So because of that, you also have higher turnover rates. It's amazing to me that you can have situations where people are willing to live in a little worse conditions than maybe they'd be willing to operate their business out of. And so when you do have a tenant leave, there can be substantial expense in getting that apartment fixed back up and ready to lease out again. So in between tenants, you may need to put some dollars into fixing that unit up and getting it ready to refill. You know, one of the positives here in the Sioux Falls area is that we do have about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people, you know, moving to town every year. And so we do have a constant need for housing, but we also have a lot of large complexes getting built. And so if you're purchasing or own an older property, you can also have to compete with newer properties that are a little shinier and a little more attractive for people as well when you're talking about filling up the vacancies. And in the end, the buck stops with you as the owner. So if you have noisy tenants, the neighbors are complaining, all of that is going to end up funneling back to you. And so in a residential setting, you can end up with more complaints and more issues that you have to deal with. There can be a higher level of management necessary on a multifamily type of property as well. So those are a lot of the pros and cons having to do with multifamily. I guess the last con that I would like to talk about is having to go through the eviction process. You can end up with tenants not paying rent, and there are laws in place that don't allow you to just boot them out immediately after you don't receive a rent check in the first 5 days of the month. It can be a process of having to serve them eviction papers. And then again, like we were talking about before, sometimes when tenants are evicted, they get upset and they do damage to the property. And then you have to fix that up and get it ready for the next tenant to come in as well. So those are things to be aware of when you're getting into a multifamily property. If you have any questions or would like to talk more specifics, I'd be happy to do so. My name's Brian Smith with Vantas Commercial Real Estate.